Okay, so good morning and welcome to the Packaging Extended Producer Responsibility update. And hopefully today we'll give you a bit more insight on the packaging EPR disposal fees and the financial impact to your business. I'm Charlotte Davis. I work at Beyondly. We're a compliance scheme and consultancy based in North Yorkshire, and I work in our resource efficiency team. Really looking at how legislation and policy can impact materials and packaging. So first of all, I just wanted to touch on a quick reminder, what is packaging extended producer responsibility? So EPR is an environmental policy approach which extends a producer's responsibility for their products or packaging to the post-use stage. For specifically packaging, we've had a producer responsibility system in place which has operated since 1997, but it's never fully covered the cost of disposing of all packaging waste, so it's only sort of covered that end of life recycling phase. Whereas via disposal fees, packaging EPR will move the full cost of dealing with household packaging waste away from local taxpayers and councils to the packaging producers, applying that polluter pays principle. And that then gives producers the responsibility for the cost of their packaging throughout its life cycle. And the hope is that this will incentivise a reduction in packaging use and choice and design of easier to use packaging. And now in 2025, we are underway with the introduction of the producer responsibility packaging compliance system to the extended producer responsibility for packaging. So the regulations fully came in from the 1st of January 2025. So as a reminder, there are two types of organisations obligated in the system. On the left-hand side in the grey, we have the thresholds to be a large organisation, which are an annual turnover of £2 million or more and 50 tonnes of packaging supplied per calendar year, 50 tonnes or more, that is. Any company which meets both these thresholds will be a large organisation and will have obligations for data reporting, assessing packaging recyclability, and obviously the financial obligations associated with those. On the right-hand side, in yellow, we have a lower set of thresholds that are newly introduced for packaging EPR, and that's an annual turnover of £1 million and 25 tonnes of packaging supplied, but not meeting both the thresholds, obviously, for a large organisation. So any company which meets these criteria will be classed as a small organisation and will only have the data reporting obligation. So there's no financial obligation or recyclability assessment associated with those. It's just data reporting. We've left out the labelling obligation as these are currently not contained within the regulations that came in from the 1st of January this year. But we're waiting for government to give more of a standardised approach on that in line with the EU. So we're expecting those to come in future, but they're not currently included within the regulations. So as well as this new financial obligation, disposal fees, we need to be mindful of the fact that under packaging EPR, the points of compliance along the supply chain has changed, and therefore the way that the financial obligation is determined is also changed under packaging EPR. So we are moving away from a system of shared compliance where multiple parties along the supply chain share the full obligation, split by various activities, which you can see on that list on the left. So manufacturing, converting, pack filling, and selling, to a system of single point compliance under packaging EPR. So you can see this on the right hand side, where one party along each supply chain will assume the full obligation for each unit of packaging. So they essentially will pick up 100% of the PRN and disposal fee obligation. And that single point of compliance is with the brand owner, importer, pack filler, distributor, the loaners of reusable packaging, and the online marketplaces, who are obligated to report packaging in their packaging placed on market data. And that single point of compliance will be applicable to both financial obligations, so PRNs and disposal fees from 2025 onwards. And we're really going to touch in on disposal fees today. PRN fees have already been in place for a long time, so we really want to just focus on updates on disposal fees. So for large producers, there are three financial obligations. Disposal fees, which apply just to household packaging and packaging that commonly ends up in public bins, and that's determined by placed on market data. Primarily, these cover the costs of local authority collections and sorting of packaging from households and public bins. So when we put our rubbish in our bin outside at curbside, this cost is covering that collection when the wagons come in and they collect that waste, and then they take it off to be sorted at a material recovery facility or a MRF. That is the cost that's really being covered with these fees. Producers can offset eligibly self-managed consumer waste. And for 2025-2026 fees, so that's packaging placed on market in 2024, the fees will be based off a base fee per material category. For the 2026-2027 fees onwards, so this is for packaging placed on market this year, so 2025, fees will be modulated based on a packaging or based on the recyclability assessed, and this is assessed via the recyclability assessment methodology, which we've got a second video which will go on to touch more about that. And this will be invoiced to producers directly from the packaging EPR scheme administrator, which is now confirmed to be PAC UK. And you might have seen the release of that name and the scheme administrator over the last couple of months. And for producers, a quarterly payment plan will be available. We then obviously have the PRN fees, which applies to all packaging, so that's including non-household packaging and household packaging, and that again is determined by the placed on market data. And this fee covers the cost of reprocessing waste packaging back into its raw form, so the recycler. So that's the end of the sort of supply chain process that's being covered. This fee will not be modulated, and so RAM is not related to PRN fees, and it will be continued to be invoiced to producers by your packaging compliance scheme, such as Beyondly, if you are part of a compliance scheme. And those are quarterly invoices and usually an end of year correction as the PRN price changes, it fluctuates on an open market. And then the final fee that you have to pay is the regulator fees and compliance scheme fees if you choose to use one. So for registration and administration costs of delivering the service, so that's with the regulator. So here we have the third iteration of the illustrative disposal fee rates. And these were published back in December now, on the 20th of December 2024. So really did keep us on our toes right up until the end of the year. Not the Christmas present I was looking for. But in a second, we've got a graph to see how these have changed because there was previous iterations. So these illustrative fees represent the best possible point estimate of disposal fees given the current available information. And we're expecting that these final fees for the first year of packaging EPR will be released after the 1st of April reporting deadline. So we've just passed that. And once all the 2024 placed on market data is submitted, it's expected in June 2025 that we'll be able to see that final base fee for the first year. And the fees you can see on the right hand side are rounded to the nearest £5. These point estimate approaches as such have sort of changed from the ranges. So at first we saw a low, middle and high range just as the methodology was being confirmed. But now those four governments have agreed on the final proposed modelling scenarios for total local authority costs, and this is known as the LAPCAP model. So government are confident now to give us a single point figure. So that's why this third iteration is one figure rather than a range. you can see that we've got categories for other materials include sort of anything that's not listed on there. So that might be bamboo, ceramic, copper, cork, that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely something to be considered. And just something to be aware of as well is that DEFRA may provide a fourth iteration of the illustrative disposal fees. So following that 1st of April packaging reporting date, packaging data submission and the reporting deadline, if that has significantly changed what the illustrative disposal fees are looking at currently, they are likely to release a fourth iteration to help before they release the final base fees in June. So that's when we're expecting to get that final fee. So leading on from that previous overview, you can see how the disposal fees have evolved from the first iteration to the second to the third, and you can really see for a lot of materials that scale has really narrowed down. Materials like glass were quite high to start with for what you'd expect, and obviously we've worked with PAC UK to sort of narrow that down into an accurate representation of what the costs are for the producer. So let's talk through the timeline for the first set of disposal fees. And as a reminder, this first set of disposal fees will be charged to producers based on the packaging reported, placed on market packaging over the 2024 calendar year. The invoices will cover the financial period of the 1st of April 2025 to the 31st of March 2026. And we have our key dates on the left-hand side. So we know that in January 2025, obviously 1st of January, the main packaging EPR regulations entered into force. And we had the third iteration of illustrative disposal fees published just before Christmas. On the 1st of April, which is obviously now passed as well, we had that 2024 placed on market data submission by producers and compliance schemes to government. And so between April to June, that should be June 2025, governments will calculate the final fee rates for this first set of fees. And then it says July on the screen, but this should be June. June 2025, government will notify producers of the final disposal fee rates that they will be charged from October 2025. We will then see the invoices being raised to producers for that 2025-2026 disposal fees in October 2025. And then from November, the first direct debit payment will be collected at least 45 days after the date of invoice raised in October 2025. So the invoice is raised in October and it's likely you'll be able to pay 45 days later. Then if we take a look to the right, producers will have the ability to make payments via quarterly instalments. For the first year of fees, DEFRA expect these instalments to be paid during November, January, April and June. And this schedule is expected to differ in following years. So going forward, when we're established with the disposal fees and it's not such a new thing for producers, the quarterly instalments will be August, November, February and May in subsequent years. So for the first year, it's slightly later, but they'll bring it forward for future years. So before we sort of finish off this disposal fee section, we wanted to really just summarise down how the evolution of fees look. So you can see this table really nicely represents the 25-26 fees. That refers to packaging placed on market in 2024. So that's that calendar year packaging placed on market. This disposal fee type would be unmodulated. It's just those base fees, and we're getting confirmation of what the base fees will be in June of this year. There's obviously no recyclability assessment required, and the final fee dispose rate notification, as I've said, that will be in June. It's after the data's been submitted in April 2025. And then for producers, invoices will be received from October 2025, and that quarterly payment plan, as we've touched on, will be available. So for the second year of disposal fee modulation, That's that 26-27 disposal fee payment, and that is for 2025 packaging placed on market. This disposal fee type will be modulated, and it will be modulated on the outcomes of the recyclability assessment, so that RAM methodology. Again, the final disposal fee rates will be notified after April 2026, so when that final year of 2025 data is submitted on the 1st of April, PAC UK will go away and then calculate what the accurate fees should be off that year. And then invoices will be received slightly earlier than the year before, because now we're in the flow of this, and hopefully the processes will be in place. So that will be July 2026. So a final slide, really, just with the key takeaways. We know that the packaging EPR regulations are now made, they're in law. Packaging EPR disposal fees will be charged against household packaging and packaging commonly placed in public bins. We saw that third illustrative disposal fees released back in December 2024, and this is currently that best possible estimate for producers to use to understand what they'll be paying from October 2025. And those final fee rates are expected to be published, in June 2025, not July. That's an update that's come in recently. And producers will therefore be invoiced from PAC UK from October 2025, and quarterly payment plans are available. So hopefully that's provided a really nice, well-rounded view of the disposal fees, PRNs, and additional costs under packaging EPR. Please see our part 2 video for more information about that recyclability assessment methodology that we have touched on a couple of times today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. My details are there on the left. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.